So thanks so much for joining me, Laura.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. It's an honour to be here, Lawrence.
It's an honour to have you join us. Thank you so much. So just to kickstart, first of all, Laura, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and obviously your background, really?
Yeah, sure. My name's Laura Crawford and I'm the owner of a company called Engineering Media Limited. We publish machinery and manufacturing magazine currently. I have been working within the business-to-business world of engineering media, I guess we'll call it, for 21 years in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I've been around for a while and couldn't imagine my life any other way. So yes, that's a bit about me.
And congratulations for the upcoming anniversary. Oh, 21 years. Amazing. So first and foremost, so we're going to be discussing in this episode how manufacturers can almost foster a little bit of synergy between their PR and marketing. But first and foremost, why is it important for manufacturers to have a really good all-round marketing strategy, and how does PR complement that?
So important. I think the most important thing that I've seen in the last at least decade has been that it's just such a competitive market, the global market, not just in the UK, such a competitive marketplace. So having some strategy behind what kind of marketing you're doing and the message you're trying to portray is increasingly important. And PR is a huge part of that. It surprises me sometimes when I speak to people that have got a fantastic suite of marketing collateral, and I see the bright, colourful, adverts or banners or social media that they're portraying. It surprises me when people don't have a strong PR sort of backup to that. So yeah, it's incredibly important.
So you just kind of alluded to, obviously the competitive nature of, as you say, not just domestically, but also internationally in the global market. How can PR strategies help manufacturers almost differentiate themselves in that highly competitive marketplace?
I think getting the messaging right, deciding the messaging that you want to go for in the first place, and maintaining that message throughout all of your PR. I mean, obviously that means that perhaps some of the SMEs that I speak to need to, outsource help for that, which is fine. But I think it's so important to get your messaging right and also be consistent with, exactly what you're putting out into the market. So often I sit with people, well, on a weekly basis, I sit with smallish subcontractors, let's just say, and they'll tell me some amazing stories that are actually really crucial to the makeup of their business, or maybe how their product was produced, anything. And I say, but there's nothing about that like in anything that you do. And I think over time manufacturing has lost its I don't want to say completely lost. I feel like we're regaining, but certainly in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s, before social media was such a thing, I think manufacturing lost its human touch a little bit. And I think that's one of the problems with the skills gap that we see. And certainly, I can't help but feel PR had a huge part to play in that, really, and people just not perhaps adopting the right strategies to show the people within their businesses. It's easy for manufacturing to become very product centric, the promotion that people are doing. Sorry, I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there.
No, important point, because I think it's something that's not only limited to manufacturing. I think that companies do so often get caught up in like the product side of things, and don't go with that user first approach. I mean, for the listeners amongst us who don't know, and perhaps yourself, like my background is copywriting,
okay.
So it's something that I take into my job. When I'm writing copy, always put the always put the user first and the benefits first. And I think that sometimes people can kind of get a little bit clouded and kind of look behind, so almost like prioritize all of their features, all of their, everything, make everything like product centric. And as you say, you do need to focus on that human side. And that kind of like leads me quite nicely into what I wanted to ask you next. So you've kind of, you've mentioned obviously that human touch and the importance of that. What are almost like some of the the complementary components of an effective PR strategy in addition to that human centric element?
Goodness, so much. I think face-to-face networking, advertising, and when I say advertising, I don't just necessarily mean traditional advertising within publications. That isn't a push for machinery and manufacturing, honestly. I mean, when I say advertising, I mean branding, be that banner advertising, promoting yourself on social media, but getting your branding completely spot on and consistent across the board, really. I think social media has become a huge sort of bolt on to the PR world, and actually I almost see it working in cycles now with a lot of customers that I work with. Sometimes PR campaigns almost start on a social side and then move into something a little more traditional, shall we call it. But I think that the biggest bolt on that people must, I always say PR complements advertising, and that is because I generally speak to people about promoting their products, but actually I sway towards the fact that it's pointless doing PR without having some kind of advertising now as well.
Yeah, sure. Almost like striking a bit of a happy medium, I guess, isn't it? So
yeah, completely.
Yeah.
It's we want to read the words about companies, but I think branding is so important now. That's what it boils down to. That's why I use the word advertising. We are all consumers in our day-to-day lives, whether it be in business or in at home, and we've all seen decent brands from maybe our childhoods that we thought would still be around, completely forgotten about. Occasionally you might be at the pub and someone will be talking about, I don't know, Golden Wonder. Not such a manufacturing example, I know, but oh yeah, or people will talk about products, sweets, crisps, games from when we were younger. Where did they ever go? Whatever happened to them? And I can't help but feel, even if they had the best PR person in the world working for them, if they didn't keep their branding consistent and remain visible, that's when businesses do just sort of disappear, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think that it's quite interesting, really. Just on the topic of kind of keeping brands current. We had Elliot Rayner on a previous episode. It was a shameless little plug, but I'll throw it in there. He, he's almost like a product storytelling expert. But how can manufacturers use storytelling, and what role does that have to play in improving the branding, marketing, and PR strategies?
They should all be using storytelling. That's how I will start that. Obviously, manufacturers are many different sizes. I would say everyone should be using some kind of storytelling to promote their businesses in the current world. I think it's easy for large organisations and OEMs to adopt a very company-wide storytelling. This is what we've done this week. This is where we've been last week, and keep that ticking over. That's fine. They've got a lot of people in the business and perhaps are operating on a much larger scale than your small manufacturer that may have 10 employees, and they think, right, okay, how do we use storytelling? I say to people, just start introducing your teams, start to bring the humans that are behind the lathes, the humans that are running the CNCs, your apprentices, your retiring workforce. Let's build the story of the company without just speaking about the product. Hey, this is what I manufactured today. We want to know who did it, how and why, and sometimes it's very difficult for the storyteller or perhaps the writer that goes in and wants to tell the story to talk about the why, because sometimes companies aren't able to speak about what the product is even for. That's a challenge in itself. So I always bring it back to, okay, let's speak about the people within the business. And I think social media has really complemented that. That brings challenges in its own right, of course. But yeah, that would be my advice to someone that's starting to want to tell the story, starting to storytell. Start with the people. And then before you know it, the product is, of course, going to come out because that's their expertise. Don't know if you find that when you're...
Yeah, it's something that here at Axe and Garside, we're very insistent on putting a face to the brand, really, because once you've I think we've all had experiences of dealing with almost like a faceless organization, and it's when you can't put a face to the brand or a face to a name, it does affect trust, essentially. If you're working with people, that's where it generates trust, and trust in itself breeds advocacy, and that's what you want, isn't it, from your brand?
Absolutely.
You've touched again on social media. It is such a big part, obviously, in the modern business landscape that we're all a part of. So how can manufacturers first of all integrate social media into their overall PR strategy to foster increased engagement with their audience?
Integration can happen on many levels. My best advice to people is to start somewhere. I guess if I was working with a client that was promoting a new product, for example, I would always try and ask them to find a reason to be promoting it on social media. Are you asking people to sign up to receive a free gift? Are you asking people whether they would like to sign up for a sample? Well, okay, all those lovely glossy landing pages that we've had over the years that were just used for email marketing and things, they can actually be quite a nice tie-in for a PR strategy to be used within the social world, and for us also to gain... I don't want to use the old-fashioned term leads, but yeah, essentially, you want to turn your followers, if you're promoting a product, you want to turn your readers, whoever is engaged with your content, into a potential customer, don't you? Let's talk B2B social media. I encourage people to have a call to action on social media, even if it's that they're telling a story or part of their a new story or a piece of news that they've had. Maybe then ask people's opinion at the bottom, just to encourage engagement. Obviously, we don't usually write traditionally. As a copywriter, you'll know it's not a traditional way for us to write, is it, Lawrence? But for social media to then give people the opportunity, okay, they've got to the end of this short article that I've put out here, what do they think? And that is, as you say, what fosters people to become engaged and to build a relationship between two businesses and business people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the main things, really, I know that we've certainly spoke with people here at Axe and Garside who perhaps don't have an existing social media presence, and it's almost trying to give them the nudge to actually just get started and put something out there, as you said before. Yes. And it doesn't need to be amazing, it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing, just as long as something's going out there. But I guess in addition to that initial challenge of actually getting started, almost having the courage for some people of just putting that first post out there, because some people can feel a little bit vulnerable.
I do.
But how important is it for manufacturers, once you've made that first step in putting themselves out there, to actually maintain that active presence on social media, and how can they do that effectively?
Yeah, it's so important. I always advise people to just be consistent. If you think you can only be present on social media twice a month, keep that consistent. You know, make sure you don't just do a couple of posts in a month and then completely disappear for 6 months and come back and think it's all going to be okay. Obviously, I encourage people to be engaging with, I guess, LinkedIn on a daily basis. As you probably know, I'm usually popping up on LinkedIn most days with some industry news, if not news of my own, I guess. Yeah, consistency. That's the main advice that I would give people there, and to start somewhere, as you said. I recently worked with a small subcontractor actually that was nervous about, as you say, making that first post. Why does anyone want to know what I've been making this week? And I was like, well, just do it. There are people out there, and your connections are all within the same market. It's like we're all drinking in our favourite pub together. You know, so you're in good company. Post it and see what happens. And then I got a message actually on the Friday evening saying, thanks so much. I'm really glad that I took your advice. A couple of old contacts that I used to work with years ago have actually come forward and said, didn't know you were still in business. We've got some work for you. And there we go. It's just making that first move, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think that sometimes, again, not necessarily exclusive to manufacturing, but also again in other industries, sometimes people can get almost bogged down with conventional marketing, and it's really important. I think you alluded to it earlier. It's so important to strike that balance between, like, obviously, like your conventional methods, but also to combine that with digital as well.
Yes.
Because, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, we are in such a digital centric and a digital led workspace now.
Yeah.
It's really, really important for manufacturers and everybody else to kind of keep up to scratch with current trends and so on and so forth, because you will get just left behind eventually. So yeah, it may seem a little bit worrying at first, but it's really important to just get yourself out there. So in addition to social, you know, are there any other types of content that you think manufacturers particularly need to pay attention to that can really help improve the PR strategy?
Yes, a huge one. And that's video. I think video has been important for probably, I don't know, let's say at least 10 years now. I can't help but feel the pandemic propelled how we as human beings engage with media. In some ways, I think we became hungry for more. You know, if you're reading a press release, an article about a company, okay, where's the video that goes with it then? You know, we all want that bit more. Where is the catalogue? How can I find more? I'm not sure if we became hungry for more or lazy, and I go round in circles trying to work it out. But either way, you know, from a manufacturer's point of view, you know, get some decent video footage. Even if you're not confident doing the talking heads, mic'd up interview style video, there are, with a decent agent or videographer that can explore your requirements, there is so much that you can do to complement your PR and your advertising and branding of your overall business. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I probably shouldn't be saying this as a representative of an agency that can help with video, but you know, there's almost no excuse for, you know, obviously aside from that, you know, as we mentioned before, just getting that first piece of content out there, but there's almost no excuse not to experiment and have a bit of a dabble with video. I mean, with literally every single person, or 99.9% of people, have a mobile phone, and
Yes.
you know, a mobile phone with the capability to record and share video, and that can be quite a nice way to kind of, you know, begin that segue into sharing video content, because it can be really authentic.
Yeah, totally.
So,
My advice is always take the photo, shoot the video, post
yeah,
it.
yeah.
You know,
What's
just
I always, yeah, I seem to think that the worst thing that can happen, is something that my old colleague Alison, who was our social media expert here at Axe and Garth, she always used to say, you know, the worst thing that can happen is, you know, you get little engagement and you can just, but you learn from it and you take it into your next post. If you don't try, then you don't know at the end of the day. So
exactly. And
yeah.
you could get 5 people engaged with it, but it resonates with someone so much that actually that does
Absolutely
win you a customer. It's it's all about showing up across the board, isn't it? Within PR, advertising, video, social, all about showing up.
Absolutely, 100%. So, in terms of, you know, I'm going to kind of just look at the other end of the spectrum. I know that we've said it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing. It doesn't need to be, you know, all bells and whistles. But are there any in particular, almost like PR tactics that you've seen that have been really successful and innovative in the way in which they've been implemented? Not necessarily just on social media or with video or whatever, but just in general. And how can manufacturers learn from the companies who've almost thought outside the box a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we see it, excuse me, on a day-to-day basis, don't we, with some of the big brands in our lives. I'm a bit of a, I get excited by any slightly different PR exercise. And the one that actually comes up, springs to mind right now, and it's probably not the example that I would have used, and this is me stupidly not doing my research, Lawrence. The huge PR campaign that none of us could have missed last year had to be the Marks and Spencer's versus Aldi Caterpillar cakes. And then even Tesco got involved. And before you know it, a little side sort of swipe at someone that's replicating a product of someone else's becomes a rather jovial PR campaign that actually all of the supermarkets are making sure, hang on a minute, are our PR department equipped for this? Are we engaging on social in the right way with these people? Because it completely grabbed, at least I would say, the mums of the birthday cake world.
I think it could really, sorry, just to kind of interject a little bit, I think it's really interesting that you've picked up on this example, because I think, again, it ties in with that whole human element to it and the human side. Yeah, everyone can kind of, as you say, I think you said that, like the mums with the birthday cakes and so on and so forth. That is something that everyone can relate to. And also I think that something that was really intriguing about the way that it all kind of materialized, it all stemmed from just companies not taking themselves too seriously.
Yes.
You know, it's really important. I think humor can play just a massive part.
Totally. All products have their place.
Yeah.
And of course, Marks and Spencer know that their Caterpillar cake is delicious, but it's double the price. Okay, so if you're buying a cake for a small party, everyone's going to go for the M&S one. If you've got 50 kids you don't know turning up at a party, chances are you're going to go for a few bargain ones. The product still does the right thing. in the right space at the right time, and it's still a required product. However, as you say, they very cleverly just use some humour to go, okay, then, yeah, let's go head to head on this one. Yeah, and who knows, maybe come Christmas time, we'll see some more of that still spiralling off.
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah,
I think it'll be cool in manufacturing to see some of the big names even just give each other a nod that in that way. I think it's sometimes quite old-fashioned in its competitiveness. But yeah, as things evolve, it would be quite cool to see some of the big, I don't know, who could I think of off the top of my head, perhaps some of the larger robotics companies. We're all trying to get people to adopt robotics across the board in manufacturing. Maybe there needs to be a little bit of a campaign that says, hey, what are you doing over there?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Obviously, same as is the case with any sort of strategy. We need a way of being able to measure the success and seeing whether or not it's been worthwhile. So how can manufacturers, or what should manufacturers use to almost like gauge the success of how successful the PRs have been at their company?
There are ways to gauge it, aren't there now? And there are, obviously, we can track engagement on our websites, on other people's websites, how many views different stories, articles or campaigns have had. I would say making sure you have your PR within different areas that can be tracked so that it gives you an indication of how well a PR strategy is working. But also to keep a little bit of an open mind in terms of whether or not you're seeing growth across the board within your pipeline, within your sales, for example. And of course, measuring the activity that you've perhaps had in the last year against general growth. As you touched upon earlier, Lawrence, sometimes you'll put something out into the world and you think, yes, just on my first post, or I've just done my 100th post. This is going to be an absolute banger of a video. It goes out to market and your heart sinks. You've got 5 engagements on it and, I don't know, 500 impressions, something like that on social media. Now, if you were to look at the end of the year at an overall strategy and how a PR campaign had worked, should you focus on that one time that you didn't quite get the engagement? Absolutely not. And I think coming from a traditional publishing background, over the years, it's been hard, within just paper business to business media, which is my foundation, my background. This is where I come from. Teams of editors and teams of advertising people creating a product that would promote people's products within a B2B world. How do we show people that this campaign has worked for them? It's been difficult over the years, and I think we are really lucky now to be in a digital world that provides us some feedback on how things have gone. And one of the drivers behind me setting up my business in the way that we're a hybrid magazine publisher, yes, we publish a printed product, but we produce for the digital world first, had to be, because we need to have the data, but we also want our not just our customers, our contributors, people that have been involved within any of the content that we do. We want people to be able to have some transparency on how many people engaged with an article, how many people read it, how many minutes and hours were spent reading certain pages. And I'm actually really excited about that sort of side of things, because I think we're just at the very beginning of how we're going to be able to essentially track performance of PR, but just not from the, I'm not excited about it in tracking the performance of a PR campaign. The business should know whether something's worked or not, and how business is going. It doesn't mean if it hasn't worked, you stop. I'm excited about the data and the transparency that we'll have on human behaviour more, which is probably my biggest driver into continuing to help people tell their stories and things, really.
That's actually segued very nicely into my next question. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll ask you anyway in case there's anything else that you want to add. So what do you almost see as the future of PR in the manufacturing industry, and how can companies prepare for upcoming trends that we may be seeing in the next few months?
I know I keep saying this, but more human to human storytelling. I think that's how we will see things evolve. Even the big OEMs are sort of going, oh, okay, then the people at the top have gone, oh yeah, okay, maybe we don't mind people finding out, that Simon has been working in, I don't know, Wales this week at one of our customers because they're doing something awesome, and we like telling people that we do awesome things. I think the biggest challenge that people will have is to get engagement across large organisations. So if I was to be running a middle-sized or a large organisation at the moment, trying to get adoption of some human-to-human sharing, instead of just storytelling, maybe engagement within the marketing teams and PR teams within organisations with employees would be my sort of biggest advice to people, really. I think that's where we're going to see things going. And love it or hate it, yes, it works on the broadsheets, it works, we want to see people's faces. When we read in our day-to-day lives, things resonate with us and we engage with the content. That doesn't change whether we're reading something in business or if we're sat down on a Sunday afternoon reading the newspaper. So yes, I'd love manufacturing to become more human, really.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good key takeaway that we can end the episode on. Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. For any listeners who may want to get involved with the magazine, where can they get in touch?
You can get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Laura Crawford. You can also go to our website for machinery and manufacturing, and that's www.machineryandmanufacturing.com. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been really lovely speaking to you, Lawrence.
So much. Cheers, Laura. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.